We're back for another Writers Roundtable with NHL.com's Brian Compton, Sean Rourke, and Adam Kimmelman. And Adam, let's start with you talking leapers, guys that could really jump up this list in some form or another with a really great season. Who do you think has that potential?
Seth Jones from the Columbus Blue Jackets, without a doubt. He's an elite level defenseman. He's been a guy that people talked about. He would be a Norris Trophy contender from the minute he walked in the door in Nashville as an 18-year-old. And he's only gotten better, bigger, stronger. He's gotten a bigger bite of things in Columbus. John Tortorella trusts him in every situation. He's a guy who, if he stays healthy, could be a 26-minute-a-night guy, play on your power play, play on your penalty kill, be a positive plus-minus guy. He's emerging as a locker room leader. To me, he's a guy who's going to win multiple Norris trophies, I think, before his career's over.
Well, you know he's a special defenseman if he's getting that many minutes under John Tortorella. He does not,
Absolutely.
He does not suffer poor execution in your own end, and he brings the offense. So, you know, personally, I think he's made leaps and bounds under Tortorella. As hard as he is as a coach sometimes, he teaches people how to play the game, and I think he's taught Seth a lot about his own end and being better there, and I don't think Seth gets enough credit for that.
And he likes that. He's a guy that some guys will wilt from that pressure. He's a guy who takes it, responds, and internalizes it. Remember, he comes from a professional athlete family. His father was an NBA player. He understands how it is to be coached and to be coached hard.
Crazy to think of Seth Jones as kind of a veteran defenseman now, because he is still young, but a guy that's even younger, Miro Heiskanen. And I know you're a fan of his. Why?
I am, and it's crazy when you think about some of the rivalries we have now with Hedman and Doughty and Carlson and all those guys. We have them coming in the next generation already. They're starting to identify themselves. Darlene, you know, Seth Jones we just talked about. Heiskanen, to me, like, you saw him in the playoffs. He skates like so few players in this league skate, controls the game. He was their dominant defenseman, right? The playoffs are always the cauldron that defines who a player is. You can be good in the regular season. You might get the right matchups. You know, you might be able to coast through a few games. There's no place to hide when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And when Dallas walked into those playoffs, you're like, well, they got some nice young defensemen on their team, Klingberg, you know, those guys. I wonder how it's all going to play out. And when it was over, you were like, wow, Miro Heiskanen, he's the real deal. And he's a guy that's going to continue to climb up this list. And you look at all those young defensemen, and they're going to be going back and forth. And don't think that they don't know it. And we look at this list next year, and it'll be completely different.
Yeah, and Dallas certainly has a lot of promise going forward with all the pieces that they've added. Then you talk about Pittsburgh and what they're going to do. Well, Jake Guentzel has already won a Stanley Cup championship, but why should he be on this list, or why is he primed to have a big year this year?
I think look at the production from the last few years, Jamie. It goes up, right? It goes from 18 to 22 to 40 goals. And people are going to say, well, he's a product of Sidney Crosby. I don't buy that for 1 second. The way that Jake Guentzel burst onto the scene in the playoffs a few years ago and was arguably a Conn Smythe candidate, I think he's a terrific player, and he's only going to go up on this list for sure. He was one of the few guys that could bust through the Islanders' defense during that first round sweep. He's a terrific forward for sure.
Wow.
And he's going to get more responsibility. There's no Phil Kessel in Pittsburgh this year. He's in Arizona now. So Gensel's going to get even more responsibility than he had before in different situations, you know, whether it's power play, other situations on the ice. They're going to ride him even heavier than they have.
So many questions going into the season ahead, and we always can't wait to see what the top draft picks are going to do, right? That's one of the biggest questions I always have going into the season. Now you look at Jack Hughes and Capo Kakko and what they can do. Do you think each of them is primed for a leap year?
Absolutely. There's a path where both of those guys are on the top 50 list next year. They're that good. I think Hughes is an elite #1 center in the league. I think Kakko is ready to be a top-line winger as soon as the start of this season.
Wow.
I think Kakko might have a better first season than Hughes just because he's so much bigger, stronger, won't have as much responsibility on him because he's playing on the wing. But I think 5 years from now, Jack Hughes is top 10 center in the league.
True.
Just the skating, the poise, the intelligence, the vision, the way he handles the puck. You know, if you watch NHL Network, you got to see him, the World Under-18s, the World Junior Championship, and the World Championship. And the Worlds is where it really stood out because he's playing with and against NHL players, and it was a little bit of a slow burn. Struggled the first game, got a little bit better the second game. By that last game the U.S. played, he was their best player on the ice for long stretches of that game. That tells you what he's capable of doing. So, yeah, I think Jack Hughes absolutely is going to be a top 50 player as soon as next season.
I think he's more NHL ready, but to me, it's 3 years removed, 2 years removed from the thing that we all love to watch already, which is Matthews and Line. It's playing out the same way, right? Like different positions, different responsibilities. Who's going to be better? How fast do they catch those guys?
Yeah.
They're their contemporaries. Like how fast do they come up behind them and say, "You think you're the best one at this? Here I come, and I'm going to show you." So, and I think, you know, as Adam said with Hughes, he has the perfect coach in John Hines to get the most out of him, to make him the player that he needs to be. I think John's really good with young players. He had the national developmental program for a while. That's where he made his bones, is in developing these players for the NHL. And now he gets to work with Jack Hughes and turn him into something special. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch this year for sure.
Yeah, it will be. Hughes and Kakko going 1-2 in the NHL draft this year. And now just a little Hudson River separates those two from going at it in some great rivalry games. We can't wait to watch this fall.